Good morning. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Project Freelance. It is early. It is 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time when this episode comes out. But no matter what time you're listening to this, thank you for listening to it. But just so you know, it does come out at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, just in time for your Monday morning commute. So, this week on the podcast, I'm speaking with Roger Bohlen of Wavcvlt Productions. I actually got connected with him through my drummer, Ben Levi, who is in my band Matriarchs, but he's also in Cutthroat from LA, and he's also in a band that Roger's also in called Fate Destroyed. So I wanted to talk to him about music production and how he got into music and things like that. This is season 7 of Project Freelance, and I wanted to make an effort to talk to more music producers and see how they built their business, how they honed their craft, because I think music production is huge and there's a lot that I could learn as an artist from music producers. So before we get started, there's a few things I got to let you guys know about. Firstly, if you do like this episode, please at any point in time leave a rating and feedback for the podcast. It helps us grow. It helps new people find us. And if you do leave a rating and feedback, take a screenshot of it and send it to me at Project Freelance, either on Twitter or Instagram, and I will get a hold of you and I will send you a signed photo print that I have taken in an abandoned building. Yes, when I am not freelancing, I explore abandoned places. It is my passion. It is my love. I love doing it, and it's a ton of fun. It's so much fun that I've actually created a book that you can purchase called No Tracers, an Urban Explorer's Diary. And if you guys want to get a copy of that and read some stories from my explorations or see some photos, just go to notracers.com/shop. And then the next thing I have to let you guys know about is that my band Chasing Satellites has a new song out called Split 2, and there's a music video for it. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out. And then my other band Matriarchs has an album coming out on October 16th. If you guys are interested in that, it's called Year of the Rat. I would love for you to check it out. And the last thing I need to mention is that we have a partner for this podcast, and that is Liquid Death Water. If you've never heard of Liquid Death Water, hey, don't worry. I've got an ad coming for you in 3, 2, 1. From the streams of the Austrian Alps comes a new kind of water. A water that is sure to raise you from your grave. If you're tired of buying cases of plastic water bottles that contain carcinogens and God knows what else, or if you're trying to lower your waste footprint, Liquid Death comes in beautifully rugged aluminum cans. Murder your thirst with a can of Liquid Death. Check the link in the description and use code JUSTTHELETTERK at checkout for 10% off your order. Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. So yeah, if you guys want to get a discount on your water, hit up Liquid Death and use the discount code JUSTTHELETTERK for a discount on your water purchase. There's a link down in the description. There's actually several links down in the description, a bunch of affiliate links to Amazon products that I think could help you out as a freelancer, especially if you do any type of photography or videography. Even though this is a podcast about audio engineering and production, I still think there are probably some content creators out there that might need some gear. So let's jump into this episode. Roger, please introduce yourself and what it is you do to the Project Freelance audience.
So my name is Roger Bohlen. I own my own audio production company called Wavcvlt Productions. Obviously a longtime musician and been doing this for like 15 years, been playing in bands for like the last 10 years, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Awesome. So let's talk about how you got into music in the first place. What made you catch the bug?
Oh, Jesus. I'll try not to ramble on too long about that one, but I guess if we're going to go back to it, I think I was like 12 years old, and I was really more into art and drawing as a kid and in class. I mean, we were all kind of that kid that just kind of doodled in our notebooks instead of taking notes. So I kind of thought that was going to be my direction more so than anything else. But my stepdad was a bass player, and he had this like really sick like Ibanez Iceman bass, and he wanted to like pawn it or sell it or something like that. And my mom convinced him to let me have it. instead of pawning it. And I had no idea what the hell I was doing, and just kind of thumped around on that until I learned how to like read tabs and kind of play along with like Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath and like all that stuff. And that was really cool. And I started playing in like little high school bands or like grade school bands back then, just like not having any idea what I was doing. I think we played Smoke on the Water for like a dance, and I played it completely incorrectly, but I had such confidence and the spirit was there. And I think that was really um, the start for everything. And from there, it just kind of evolved into other instruments. My dad bought me a guitar, I think by 2 years later. And that's been the main instrument since then. I play guitar in 3 bands currently. Um, One in California called Fate Destroyed, and 2 out here that I've been going for a long time. And then, so jumping kind of into the future of all that, obviously, all the music I was doing needed to be recorded, and we were out, working with different producers around town and spending all this money. And then it just kind of like occurs to you, like, well, how hard can this really be? Like, I just want to like jot down ideas and like really just kind of get something on paper before I forget it. And all these programs started coming out that were more easily accessible to people like me, like GarageBand, Ableton, whatever.
Hmm.
So I actually got like a deal with Ableton that they gave me the whole program and the suite and everything. And that was a big opening to the music production field. And I didn't even think that I was going to end up becoming a record producer or a music producer of any kind. It just kind of fell into my lap after I started being like the main recording engineer for my own band. Other bands just kind of started picking it up, asking me like, well, who records your band? And I'm like, well, me. And they're like, well, what are your rates? And I'm like, whoa, I have no idea. I've never been asked that question before. And so I kind of just like made it up as I went, and I was like kind of picking up bands here and there, like making a little bit of like extra side money. And then, yeah, from there, it just kind of became more of a priority. And that kind of became like my, like a 50-50 gig. Like I had a day job and then I had this other thing going on. And it became really competitive to the point where I was starting to make more money recording bands than I was like rolling burritos at my job.
Hmm.
And so this is actually kind of new. I was working at my day job up until March of this year, and then obviously COVID-19 happened and pandemic happened. So myself, along with a lot of other people, were out of a job, or we were furloughed or whatever.
Hmm.
And they asked me, I think back in July, if I wanted to come back to work. And I really thought about it for a few days. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to go back to that and sell myself short and just not, be part of a corporate machine.
Hmm.
And I think the one thing that a lot of people don't really tell you when you're trying to do a freelance thing is that you reach a certain point where you have to like take a leap of faith. And it's like, I don't know if this has like ever happened for you or anything, but there's gets to be a point where like it's never really comfortable jumping from something that's stable and secure like a 9 to 5 job to like just doing freelance. Like it's going to be super uncomfortable for a while, but I figured like this was a chance to do it, and I'm just going to dive head first into it. And the worst thing that could possibly happen is I fall on my face. I have to go get another job.
Right.
So I think I'm sitting at about maybe about 2.5 months I've been doing the production or the recording company full time. And honestly, I'm making, like I said before, like more money than my day job was making. So I'm super happy about that. But yeah, that just kind of brings us up to today.
Nice. So before we get into like how you got into like music production, I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but I want to dive deeper into that. Can we talk about how small the music industry really is? Like how everybody knows everybody. Like for example,
Oh
my
my
drummer
God, yeah.
Ben is the drummer of Fate Destroyed. So that's like how we got connected. So Ben plays for Matriarchs, and he's had Matriarchs for like, I don't know, 10 years. And he
Has he
found me
really?
during quarantine. Yeah, he's had these songs for like 6, 7 years, and he found me during quarantine through TikTok, and then he connected us through Facebook. So yeah, can we talk about how small the music industry is,
That
and how you've probably worked with some bands that know other bands, and word of mouth spreads quickly.
that's kind of what you rely on, honestly, to kind of succeed in this industry. I feel like there's I've met a lot of like musicians that are starting out that kind of have this mentality that it's like them against the world, and you really need all your colleagues and all the people around you, everybody in the industry, like they really are there to help you out, and you really need them. Like for example, like you with Ben and Matriarchs and me and Fate Destroyed, like I have a drummer here in Colorado who is the drummer for one of my bands, and then he's the drummer for the other band I'm in, and he recruited me to be in that other band, and like it's all kind of like interwoven in that weird way. But when you do that, you're opening yourself up to like more and more and more opportunities, because you just never know where those different musical directions are going to go. And you just have to, like, I don't know, I like to think of it as like you're making a movie, right? That
Mm,
one, like Brad Pitt or whatever actor, for example, didn't like go and film and star and was all his own extras, and he wasn't the entire thing. There was a team of people behind it. And it's the same thing for any type of artistic collective. It's just like you need people who are like the promoters, the drummers, the guitar players, the people who are putting on the shows. Like it's all a part of it. And so the more people can connect, and I kind of think that's why it ends up being such a small world. The
yeah.
people that are like, especially Ben, he's like such a hustler. He's just like can't really sit still for too long. He's like, well, if one thing's not doing something, I have to do another thing.
Mm,
And then he ends up being interwoven. Even I think your other guitar player, what's
Carlos.
Carlos, he's good friends with my friend Gustavo out here, and they're in a band together. And it's like that. I could say that about so many bands, but I think it's really awesome, and it's gotten to the point where I kind of expect that now. That
Right.
I meet a band, I'm like, okay, one of you is somebody who knows somebody that I know. Like that circle is that close. But I don't know. I think it's really cool. I think we're better off being more connected than disconnected at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think music is something that brings the world together. So it's super cool to see that music is bringing these band members together across different projects.
Oh,
So how do
especially like
you?
even like across the country. Like you and I are talking
Yeah,
across like thousands of miles right now. Like
right.
this isn't a thing that could have happened like, back in the earlier days, even like the 90s or early
Hmm.
2000s. Like I can be in
Yeah.
a band in California and be in Colorado at the same time. It's just that's just where we're at right now. And yeah, I agree with you. It's
Hmm.
it's it's super awesome how that's all interconnected like that.
Yeah, and even across continents, we've got bands like Crazy 88 who have people in Canada and America and the UK. It's like it shows you what's possible when it comes to being connected and working together.
Absolutely.
So take me through like the first project that you produced that wasn't your own project. Tell me about what that process was like, what you learned, what pitfalls you may have come across, and what you took away from that.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve for sure. There's so many instances in like a freelance career where you step into and you're like, oh crap, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I hope they don't find out that I don't know what I'm doing. Um, so I was working at um some day job, and like I kind of mentioned earlier, it was kind of like that snowball effect where somebody I worked with was in a band, and they asked who produced my band, and I said me. And then that was the person who asked me what my rates were. And first weird thing about it was, as I mentioned, was how much to charge them. I had no idea because I was afraid. I was like, well, I don't want to ask for like too much money because I'm going to scare them away, and I don't want to screw myself over by like not charging enough. I definitely didn't charge enough at the beginning, but I think that's okay, and that's how you kind of walk into this kind of thing. So I didn't charge them very much, and I didn't have a studio. I did not have a studio at all, and I was definitely trying to pull it off like I had these resources. And so I was just like, yeah, I can do it. I can do anything. And they're like, okay, cool. Here's the money. I'm like, shit. Now I gotta find somebody who has like all this stuff that I need. And luckily, through the small interconnected interwoven world of music, I do know like a lot of people who are stocked up on recording gear. So I went to my one of my friend's house. I think it was in his mom's basement or something. But he had like all the recording mics, and he had a room that was like good for drums and everything like that. And that didn't go too bad. The only kind of embarrassing thing that happened during that process was I was setting up the microphones on the drum set, and he had to keep coming up to me being like, "Hey, you're doing this wrong. Like, let me show you." I'm like, "Ah, crap." Like right in front of the drummer I'm recording. I just didn't want them to think like, "Oh, this guy doesn't even know how to put a microphone on anything." But I mean, they were cool with it the whole time. And I think it was their first time recording to like a metronome or like a click track or whatever. So recording
Wow.
drums was like a 8 or 9 hour process.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was a long one, definitely. And but all in all, it didn't go too bad. I got that smashed out in a day, and then the rest of the recordings, the guitars, the bass, and the vocals, I did in my bedroom where I lived. And amazingly, with where all the recording technology is at, that doesn't yield too terrible of a result. It's not going to be like you know, top 10 or anything like that, but it came out pretty good for the most part. But there were definitely, I was just new to everything back then. There were definitely a lot of like mixing techniques I didn't know yet. I didn't know to like have guitar players check their tuning before they record. Luckily, it was kind of like more of a grungy punk rock outfit, so I think untuned guitars were a little. You could kind of look over that a little bit, but
Mm.
still a couple of things when I go back and I listen to it, I'm like, I wish I would have done this a little bit differently. But it's a learning curve for anybody and any freelance thing that they do. Like your first project is always going to be like, well, I could have done that a little bit better. But as far as like, first times go, it wasn't like the biggest train wreck thing I could have done. Um, so I don't know. I think that worked out pretty well in my favor.
Yeah. And then can you talk about how artists can or they have the access to be able to record anywhere? Usually record vocals in my closet, and people are always like, "Why are you in a closet?" Because I
That's
jammed
actually
into my
not that's
closet.
actually like one of the best places to do it.
Exactly.
Because you're like surrounded in clothes, and like
Yeah.
that fabric is, if you have enough clothes in there anyways, it's like dense enough to where like you
Mhm.
don't want sound bouncing off the walls back at you, so then it sounds like you're in a closet. And did you do all the vocals in a closet for all those songs on YouTube and everything like that?
For most of them, I did in my closet, especially the more recent things that I've been doing. I mean, the full Matriarchs 12 track album that we are putting out in October, I recorded all the vocals in my closet for that because we were in a pandemic and
Yeah, you can't
we
really go
couldn't
anywhere.
get into a studio.
Damn. I mean, it sounds really really good. I mean, if
Thank you.
I wouldn't be able to tell the difference if you're like, oh yeah, that's a whisper room or that's somebody's closet.
Right.
But I've actually I've used oh man, this is a little embarrassing to say. I So my brother's my vocalist, and in my opinion, he's like one of the best screaming vocalists I've ever worked with. He's very like Chad Gray from Mudvayne, kind of like
Mm.
old. It's awesome. And so anytime I do like these really heavy projects, I'm like, oh, I need somebody to scream on this. I hit him up. But um, similar to your situation, yeah, we were in a pandemic, so I just like brought all of my portable recording gear that I could over to his house, and we didn't have even a closet that was big enough. Like the closets were all full of like shelves and towels. It's like that no. So we wound up using his bathroom and his like master bedroom, and we just like plopped a microphone on a stand in the middle of it, and I just like made sure to close the shower curtain so it wasn't like bouncing around the tub and everything else. And it came out like incredible. Like like I actually kind of like to tell people when I show them the music, like, yeah, we recorded this in a bathroom, but it's crazy how that kind of comes out and works. Although I will speak on the other side of it. Oh no, is my laptop power going away? Oh no, it's still charged. Everything just kind of powered down for a second. I was like, oh go.
Oh, you're like, wait.
And I'll speak on the other side of it, and that would be that there are bands that I work with that record from home that are all over the country, and they'll do the same DIY that everybody else is doing, but nobody's really there to show them the ropes on how to properly record things. I oftentimes get sent stems that the vocals are like blown out, like crazy
Mm.
blown out, and like there's nothing I can do to fix it. And it's just like clipping and distorted, and like the guitar like already has distortion on it, and it just comes out like this big mess already, and you're just sitting there like, oh god, this is gonna be hard. Like they're not gonna be. This is never gonna be the best that it could have possibly been. So, if there are musicians listening to this who record at home, check the gain on your microphone interface. If it's red, do it again. That's all I'm going to
Exactly.
say. Because otherwise, yeah, it's just like you're not. I would rather have it way too quiet than way too loud. It's going to be like so much better. But yeah, that's just a part of the music world now. Like we all record at home, and nobody's there to educate us and show us how to do it correctly. So, more power to everybody who can do that kind of thing, in my opinion.
And how did you learn how to, mix, master, record? How did you learn all this stuff? Do you have any formal training? Are you completely self-taught? Did you go to YouTube
Uh,
University? Like what was your thing?
Definitely the YouTube University thing. What's unfortunate is that like I didn't really have like the cocky confidence to really just be like, you know what, I got this. I'm just gonna figure it out. I really wanted to like get an internship and like learn by like being hands on and like being in the same room as like another recording engineer. And when I moved to California a couple of years ago, that was like the main thing I wanted to do. I was like, oh, there's probably recording and engineers and producers everywhere. I'm going to find them, I'm going to hit them up, and I'm going to get an internship. I hit up so many recording engineers, and they all were like, I don't have any time. Like, you can't, I'm too busy, and I don't have time to show you, or like, uh, to stop what I'm doing and walk you through everything that I'm doing. It's like, it's just, you're not going to get the attention that you deserve. And that's essentially what everybody told me, talking to like 10, 15 different producers that were out there. And I think I talked to a few that were out here in Colorado too, and they kind of said the same thing. And I was like, well, I'm kind of on my own, I guess. So yeah, so then I did end up having to do the YouTube University thing. And even that is super open to interpretation because you don't really know the quality of information you're getting.
Right.
Like you could be
Because it's
watching it.
free.
Yeah, it's free, and you could be watching somebody who is doing something wrong and they think it's
Mm.
right
Mm.
and they make a video about it. Or maybe it's correct for what they're doing, but for what you're doing, it's completely incorrect. So it's been a lot of trial and error for about 5 years now. And I mean, obviously, if you go back and listen to like the first thing I ever recorded and then listen to what I recorded yesterday, it's going to be miles different. And there have been a lot of good tips and good advice from YouTube. A lot of it, I just kind of had to, trust my own ears, which is something that I wish somebody would have told me a long time ago. It's like, it's not so much about following a specific formula as it is just about trusting um, your own ears and like thinking like, okay, what's good to me? Because for such a long time I was like, oh well, this has to be set like the compressor has to be set at 4-1 with the blah 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 attack and the whatever reverb in order to make this certain sound. It's like, no, that's not true. It's like it's true for whoever made that, but for you got to figure out your own thing. And so that I think was a really difficult hurdle to get over. But once you kind of like find your sound and because you end up having like a certain style in which you mix and produce and write, and then once you find what kind of works and attenuates to that, then you're kind of on the right track. But I don't think anyone can really show you that. I think you kind of have to like walk through that door yourself. I think if I had formal training, I'd probably be where I'm at today within like 2 years instead of 5. But
Mm.
you know that's just kind of the way it goes, and I think I'm at a decent place now. I could definitely be way better, but I think I mean you should always strive to be better for sure. But yeah, it's been a long, arduous path for sure.
And then how long did it take for this to go from something that you wanted to do as a freelancer, to where you were making money paying your bills, and how long did it take for you to find your value?
Oh, um, so I mean, it was always something that like I daydreamed about like quitting all my other jobs and just like mixing and producing full time. But like I said earlier, it's like nobody nobody can tell you like when that's a good idea to do that.
Mm,
You kind of have to sit there and like self-evaluate. But I think, especially like, I worked in the restaurant industry for freaking ever and I hate it. I'm not a kitchen person. I'm not very passionate about culinary or whatever. The other thing that sucks about working in a kitchen is that when you get home from working in a kitchen all day, you don't want to make yourself food. And
right.
you don't end up going to the grocery store and like caring about yourself and like actually getting like good nutrition. You're like, I'm just gonna go to a drive-through, screw it. So like um the whole just like vibe and like industry of the restaurant world was just like not who I was as a person. But I had to do it. I had to do it to kind of get myself stable. And then, moving back to Colorado, I had to go back to my old restaurant job. And it was the same old thing. I was just like, I hated it. And then quarantine happened and I got to like stay at home and make unemployment for like 3 months. And that was sweet. So obviously during that whole time, I pretty much did just make music and produce other bands. And that kind of got a taste for that life and kind of what it would be like while still being able to maintain financially stable. So once I kind of had like a feel for what that was going to be like, then I was like, oh, I think I can do this and it's not totally uncomfortable. And yeah, that day came where they're like, "Well, we're opening our store again. Do you want to come back?" And I was like, "Uh, this opportunity only comes up like a couple times in a lifetime. I'm gonna just go for it and see what happens." And that was super nerve wracking. Like I didn't know it was gonna happen. I thought that as soon as I quit my job, all my clients would disappear and be like, "Oh, hey, we're actually going to this other studio. See you later." And I would fall straight on my face and I'd have to go back with my tail tucked between my legs. But that hasn't happened yet. I'm waiting for it to happen, but it just hasn't happened yet. And it's like this constant, like, not really on steady ground, but like I am making good money. But I don't know. I have this paranoid feeling that one day it's just gonna be like, well, I'm screwed. Time to go back. But until that happens, you know, I guess I'll just keep on keeping on for sure.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is that I heard a couple years ago, and it's become very I guess present now during this like quarantine COVID time, is that we're all kind of freelancers, whether you are a freelancer or you have a 9 to 5 job, because I mean, look what this pandemic did. It it made people lose their jobs, it made people get furloughed and laid off, and we're all kind of at the mercy of our gig, depending on what it is. But I think that, now that you've kind of dove in and you've gone headfirst into this world of music production, I think it's just going to continue to snowball for you.
I hope so. I definitely have noticed that too, that all the trades are doing exceptionally well right now.
Exceptionally well. I think
Yeah,
we adapted faster,
yeah, I mean, it kind of had to happen for sure.
right?
Like one of my best friends out here is my tattoo artist, and I'm constantly like blown away by like his work and his improvement and like his clientele. And it's just like, you'll try to book an appointment from him, and it's just like, dude, I'm like 3 months out, so you're gonna have to wait like 3 months before I can get you in the schedule. I'm like, that's crazy. Like I remember when he like just started and did exactly what I'm doing right now and just kind of like took that leap of faith. And especially now during this pandemic, it's just like he's doing crazy well. My other good friend is a graphic designer, makes tons of like band logos and like lyric videos, music videos, and he's the same way. He's like 3 months out on work, and I'm getting to be the same way. And I think the only sense I can make out of it is that people who were making like lots of unemployment money have nothing to do with their time
Yeah.
except for like work on their music and their art or whatever, or get tattooed or whatever you're into. So I think there's a big like influx of that, and I could only like hope that it's going to plateau and just like keep going the way that it's going. I don't know if it's going to go up from here, but if it could at least plateau and just like keep going in the way that it's going, then that would be fine. But my paranoia kind of lies in the fact that like, well, once everybody goes back to their jobs, it's going to be not over, but it's going to get slow again and people are gonna be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I don't have enough time for my art and my craft.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to go pay my bills and be an adult and get insurance." So, there's only I mean, I guess only time will tell for sure, but
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we'll see what happens, but it's been very interesting. So, um, I assume you tour with your bands as well. And so, what are you doing now during this time as an artist that you are trying to focus on other than your production work? Like, what are you doing as an artist to continue that forward momentum for your music projects?
Yeah, that was a little devastating this year because we had so many like shows and like festivals and tours like fall out from under us, and this was going to be like a huge year for all of that.
Yeah.
And we had the Blue Ridge Rock Festival in Virginia, which was like on this festival was like every one of my favorite bands from like 2000 up until now. It was crazy. I was so excited for it, and it was like the one festival that hadn't canceled yet, and I think they canceled it like 3 months ago. And I was just like holding out like hope and faith that they would just go on, and then they finally canceled it. And I think that was like the final straw. And I just had to like take a few days to like, you know, feel a little depressed about it. Like there was like nothing I could do. You have to feel a little bit helpless in that, because like that's such a big part of being a musician. Obviously, is going out playing shows, trying to like, you know, inform the world of your presence, and like that. We don't have it. We don't have that anymore. Well, we don't have it right now.
Right.
So that was definitely a big. That was definitely a big knock to being productive, I guess. So the only thing you can really do is stay home and make music and write albums and try to have an online presence, which I think, um, in my opinion, my band Fate Destroyed has done a pretty good job at. Francesca's always good at like staying on top of the social media thing, and we've been working on an album since March, I think, and so that's kept me pretty busy for the most part. And then like I said earlier, got two other bands on the side, so they're also deciding to write albums during pandemic because there's no live concerts. So I'm in the process of like writing three different albums right now. So that is taking a good bulk majority of my time about every day. I have to set aside a few hours to work on that, and then a few hours to work on things that I've been paid for. And outside of that, that's all you can really do. Um, I work at this I do work at this venue up north, doing live sound a couple of times a month, and you can't have a lot of people there. There's only maybe like 10, 15 people allowed at the venue at all times, which is,
Wow.
as we all know, super lame.
Super lame.
I mean, it's awesome that like we can do it, but like, you want to play a show, like a cool like rock show, and then like
Mm.
15 people are there, sometimes less. Like 15 is like the most I've seen there.
Wow.
And they live stream it, whatever, but just not the same effect. And like I talked to other bands about it, and they're like, "Oh, do you think we should do that?" I'm like, I don't think you should. It's not gonna be what you want it to be. I think you should just like hold out for as long as you can until this is kind of like back to normal again, and like really, um, live your try to live your best, show days. You never, because
Yeah.
we all try to like cancel out those shows that like, oh yeah, one guy was there.
Right.
I'll go off on a side tangent for a second because this random story popped in my head. I was on tour like 5 years ago, and I think we were playing this like little club in Des Moines, Iowa. It was not promoted very well at all. I think us and the other touring band were like the two bands on the bill, and then this third band was from like South Africa and had like just moved to America like 2 weeks prior. So nobody knew who any of us were and had no reason to come to this show. There was one guy, literally one guy
Wow.
at this show, and he didn't come to a show to see a show. He was just drunk, and he was just there. And yeah, it's just hilarious. Like you finish playing a song, and then you just hear the one guy in the back like losing his mind. And we all got done, and he's like out back, like telling us how awesome we are. And I was just like, well, at least we got one. But you want to try to avoid that as much as humanly possible, for sure. But yeah, I mean, as far as like what to do to like keep propelling yourself right now is like you have to be creative, like doing things like what you're doing, like stay engaged and like think of creative new ways to involve your audience. Like your YouTube momentum is really impressive.
Thank you.
And like you're doing your podcast, you're being like a being very independent, which is almost just as important as being, reliant on other people, but you have to really have your own presence as well, and find new outlets, new creative outlets to keep your brand moving. So I think, you know, the more you can do things like that, the more on top you're going to be at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think like collaborations have helped a lot. Like I recently did a triple collab with two other female vocalists, and we posted 3 covers across all 3 of our channels on the same day, and it really propelled the YouTube back into the recommendations and things like that. Like my channel had been plateaued for like, I don't know, 4 years. I was barely getting
Jeez.
views, and then all of a sudden last month I got like, a million impressions on my YouTube stuff. So it was like
Holy
just
shit!
got kicked back.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I just got kicked back into the algorithm, and I never thought that was going to happen again. I thought my channel was just dead, but it's been cool
That's
to see.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about collaborations. I kind of thought they were. I didn't really know my opinion on them. Like I kind of thought they were a little bit of a waste of time in the beginning, and I don't know
Mm,
why. I don't know why I thought that. I guess I was kind of thinking in a sense that like, well, if I'm not making money, why am I doing this? Kind
right.
of thing. And now I'm kind of like watching these trends of collaborations, and what you're essentially doing is um you really are opening yourself up to like, oh, this other person's subscribers. Like if I do a song with, YouTuber A, and they have X amount of followers that I don't have, and I have X amount of followers that they don't have, then that kind of like cross platforms, and then like you all kind of benefit from it a little bit. So that was the side of it I wasn't really seeing. And now it's like, oh hell yeah, sign me up for all that. It's really impressive how that really changes the algorithm, and it can, yeah, it really can like kick you back up to being on top of things.
Yeah,
I've been really impressed by it.
it is very fascinating. And then my last question for you is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
Oh, that could be a lot of things. um I guess it would be on this sentiment that being a freelancer now is not necessarily something that, like, let's say your parents would have envisioned for you when you were growing up. Like there was such I feel like there was like such a design, when we were kids and we were handed this
Yeah.
design, like you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you get a house, that's it. You know, nobody ever tells you, oh, this is how you manage your time. This is how to be your own boss. This is how you, manage money. This is how you stay on top of yourself. Because that's something that, like, I mean, maybe they're teaching in schools now. That would be cool. But like nobody in school, in any school I ever went to, was like, okay, here's how to take accountability for yourself. You can't just take today and play video games for 8 hours. Like you really need to, like, be online, looking for stuff, engaging in stuff, like engaging in other musicians, engaging in an audience, um, and like really trying to think outside of the box. And that's something that I feel like if we all knew from the get go, then we would be able to like hit the ground running like that much faster. But as I kind of said with like even learning how to mix and produce, like nobody was ever really there to kind of like show me the way. And hopefully that's something that maybe you and this podcast can kind of do to educate the general population as kind of how to kickstart it. And it is different for everybody for sure, but it's just a little unfortunate that like you kind of have to like, walk your own path and really kind of figure it out yourself, because it does end up taking a little bit longer and it's a longer walk. But at the end of the day, I think it is a little bit more rewarding once you get there, because it's like, I did this. I paved my own path and I conquered or whatever. So where I do kind of wish somebody would have shown me, I do kind of enjoy where my own path has taken me at the same point in time. So, yeah, you know.
Awesome. Awesome. And then if somebody wants to work with you on some production work, or if they want to pick your brain some more, how can they find you?
So I am on Facebook and Instagram. I'm thinking about starting YouTube. I haven't really dove into that yet. But if you want to get a hold of me, my company is called Wavcvlt, spelled Wavcvlt. obviously. So Wavcvlt Productions, it's on Facebook. If you just do facebook.com/WAVCVLT, that'll be my page. Same on Instagram, instagram.com/WAVCVLT, or you can just do the @ logo and then that, and you'll find me. Send me a message, collaborations, mixing, mastering, whatever anybody wants to do. I'm totally down to talk about it.
Before. Seems lately I've been spinning right out of control. Fam saying that I've been staying uninvolved. The fact is that a lot of me still revolves deep back in the past. It's a fact, one that I'm not really trying to bring right back.
All right, guys, that was my podcast with Roger Bohlen of Wavcvlt Productions. Thank you so much, Roger, for coming on and sharing your stories and your insight with my audience. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please do me a huge favor and leave a rating and feedback. And if you do that, I will send you a signed photo print from an abandoned building that I have explored. Yes, when I'm not freelancing, I explore abandoned places. And that leads me to my book, No Tracers, An Urban Explorer's Diary, which is a photo book filled with stories and photographs from abandoned places all over the United States. And if you guys want a copy of it, you can go to notracers.com/shop and pick up a copy today. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Project Freelance. And a massive thank you to Liquid Death Water for partnering with this podcast. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for doing what you do to help the environment and for providing me with some amazing water. I'll talk to you guys next Monday at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for another episode of Project Freelance. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out, and go create something.